The war room hummed with quiet efficiency as holographic displays showed the latest conquest reports from across the galaxy. 12 species had joined together under the banner of the Galactic Council, and their combined might had never faced a defeat. The Corvan Empire provided the muscle with their plasma-armed warships, while the Relani Federation contributed advanced shield technology and tactical expertise. Together, they had absorbed over 300 civilizations into their expanding domain. Commander Thane reviewed the intelligence data flowing across his workstation. The target system contained a single inhabited world orbiting a yellow star. The natives called themselves humans and had barely managed to establish a small colony on their moon. Their technology appeared laughably primitive by galactic standards. Chemical rockets, metal projectiles, and nuclear weapons comprised their most advanced systems. The largest human vessel on record measured only 300 meters in length and carried weapons that would struggle to penetrate even basic energy shielding. "Another easy integration," muttered Lieutenant Krell from the communications station. The young Corvan officer had participated in 17 planetary acquisitions and had grown bored with the routine. Most species surrendered within hours of seeing the Council fleet. Those foolish enough to resist rarely lasted more than a day before their primitive weapons proved useless against superior technology. Admiral Voss approached the central display, her 4 arms manipulating multiple control interfaces simultaneously. The Relani leader had overseen 43 successful campaigns and took pride in minimizing casualties on both sides. Her tactical analysis suggested deploying 200 ships for this operation, though half that number would probably suffice. The humans possessed no energy weapons, no shield technology, and no faster-than-light communication systems. Their response time to orbital bombardment would be measured in hours rather than minutes. The target world shows signs of extensive industrialization, Voss reported, her translator converting her clicking speech into standard galactic. Population approximately 8 billion, concentrated in large urban centers. Their military appears divided into separate national forces with limited coordination. Standard intimidation protocols should prove effective. A holographic display zoomed in on the third planet, revealing continents covered in lights that indicated massive population centers. The humans had achieved impressive population density for such a primitive species, but their technological development remained centuries behind galactic standards. Orbital scans revealed no energy weapons platforms, no shield generators, and no sign of the advanced materials needed for effective space warfare. Thine activated the fleet communication system, his voice carrying across 200 warships. Spread throughout the staging area. All vessels, prepare for jump to target system. We proceed with standard integration protocols. The natives will be given standard surrender terms upon our arrival. Intelligence suggests minimal resistance. Capability. The assembled fleet represented the might of 12 species working in perfect coordination. Corvan battleships bristled with plasma cannons capable of melting through any known armor. Relani cruisers carried shield generators that could withstand sustained bombardment from primitive weapons. The smaller vessels from allied species provided specialized support functions. From electronic warfare to troop transport. Each ship in the fleet carried detailed records of human civilization gathered through long-range observation. The species had fought numerous wars among themselves, displaying considerable aggression and creativity in developing weapons. However, their conflicts remained planet-bound affairs using chemical explosives and metal projectiles. They had never faced energy weapons or encountered the technologies that dominated galactic warfare. "Jump drives online," reported the navigation officer. "All ships ready for hyperspace transition." The fleet vanished from the staging area in a brilliant flash of displaced energy. Hyperspace travel allowed the massive armada to cross hundreds of light years in mere hours, emerging at the edge of the target system with tactical precision. The humans would detect their arrival within minutes, but their primitive communication systems would require hours to coordinate any response. As the fleet materialized in normal space, sensor arrays immediately began detailed scans of the inner System. The third planet showed exactly what intelligence had predicted: a heavily populated world with extensive industrial development, but no sign of advanced military technology. Several small installations on the planet's moon appeared to be mining operations or research facilities, nothing that posed any threat to the invasion force. "Transmitting surrender terms now," announced the communications officer. The message, translated into the dominant human languages, was simple and direct. Submit to council authority and be integrated peacefully into galactic civilization or face the consequences of resistance. The humans had 72 hours to respond. Though most species made their decision within the first day, Thane reviewed the tactical display, showing his fleet's position relative to the human homeworld. 200 ships arranged in a perfect formation, each one capable of devastating entire continents. The humans possessed nothing that could challenge even a single council vessel, let alone an entire fleet. Their largest weapons were crude missiles that moved at pathetic speeds compared to plasma bolts. "Any signs of military movement on the surface?" Voss inquired, her tactical systems analyzing every electromagnetic emission from the planet below. "Standard defensive posturing," reported the sensor operator. "Their primitive satellites are transmitting emergency signals, and we detect increased activity at military installations. Nothing that suggests actual resistance capability." The waiting period began, though everyone expected the humans to surrender quickly once they understood the hopelessness of their situation. The Council fleet maintained position at the edge of the system, close enough to demonstrate overwhelming force but far enough to avoid any desperate kamikaze attacks. Previous campaigns had shown that primitive species sometimes attempted suicidal ramming attacks when faced with superior technology. Hours passed as the human government presumably debated their response. Communication intercepts suggested panic in their leadership, which was entirely reasonable given the circumstances. The humans had suddenly discovered they were not alone in the universe and faced immediate conquest by forces beyond their comprehension. "Maintain standard formation," Thane ordered. "Begin charging all weapon systems. If they refuse surrender, we proceed with orbital bombardment of military targets." The fleet prepared for what everyone assumed would be another routine integration. The humans would either surrender and join galactic civilization, or they would resist briefly before being overwhelmed. Either way, the Galactic Council would soon control another world, and the war machine would continue its expansion across the galaxy. None of the aliens suspected that their target possessed anything more dangerous than nuclear weapons and chemical rockets. The intelligence reports had been thorough, the analysis complete, and the conclusion obvious. The humans were primitives who had stumbled onto the galactic stage at exactly the wrong moment. Emergency sirens wailed across the Terra Defense Command as massive alien signatures appeared on long-range sensors. General Hayes rushed through the underground corridors of the Colorado facility, his secure tablet displaying increasingly grim reports from monitoring stations worldwide. 200 hostile vessels had materialized at the edge of the solar system, each one larger than Earth's biggest warship. The Situation Room buzzed with controlled panic as military leaders tried to process humanity's first contact with alien intelligence. The visitors had wasted no time with diplomatic niceties, immediately transmitting surrender demands in 17 different human languages. Submit to something called the Galactic Council or face annihilation. The message was clear, direct, and terrifying. "Analysis confirms energy-based weapon systems," reported Dr. Kim from the science station. "Their smallest vessels register power outputs exceeding our largest nuclear reactors. The battleships are showing readings that our instruments can barely measure." President Rodriguez appeared on the main screen from the White House Situation Room, her face pale but determined. Behind her, advisors shuffled through intelligence reports and tactical assessments. The Joint Chiefs had already briefed her on Earth's defensive capabilities, and the picture was not encouraging. "General Hayes, what are our options?" the president asked, though everyone already knew the answer. "Conventional resistance appears impossible, Madam President," Hayes replied grimly. Our most advanced destroyer measures 300 meters. Their smallest escort vessel is twice that size. Our weapons are chemical rockets and railguns. There's appeared to be some form of directed energy. The tactical display showed the alien fleet maintaining position just beyond Pluto's orbit, close enough to demonstrate their overwhelming advantage but far enough to avoid any desperate human attacks. Intelligence analysts were working frantically to decode the alien technology, but initial reports suggested defensive systems that could neutralize humanity's entire nuclear arsenal. How long do we have? Rodriguez asked. 72 hours to respond to their ultimatum, Hayes answered. After that, they begin what they call orbital bombardment of military targets, based on their power signatures. They could sterilize our surface installations within hours. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had reached for the stars only to discover they were not alone, and their new neighbors viewed them as primitives to be conquered. The dreams of peaceful first contact had become a nightmare. Of immediate subjugation? There is one other option, Hayes said quietly, his voice carrying a weight that made everyone look up. I need to speak with you privately, Madam President. The secure channel activated, encrypting their conversation with quantum keys that would take centuries to break. Hayes took a deep breath before speaking words that would change everything. Madam President, I need authorization to activate protocol. 7, Rodriguez frowned. I'm not familiar with that designation. It's classified beyond your current clearance level. The Solar Defense Initiative has been operational for 15 years, hidden under the cover of various space programs. We've been preparing for exactly this scenario. The President's expression shifted from confusion to shock. You're telling me we have secret military assets? Yes, Madam President. Assets that these aliens cannot detect from their current position. We've been using mining operations, research stations, and commercial facilities as cover for the most advanced military program in human history. Hayes transmitted the authorization codes that would reveal humanity's greatest secret. Hidden throughout the solar system, disguised as civilian infrastructure, weighted weapon systems that had consumed nearly $1 trillion and the efforts of the brightest minds on Earth, the project had been deemed too sensitive for normal government oversight, hidden even from most world leaders. The centerpiece is currently stationed behind Jupiter's moon Europa, Hayes continued. The aliens will detect it the moment it moves, but they won't understand what they're seeing until it's too late. Rodriguez studied the classified files appearing on her secure display. The technical specifications were beyond her understanding, but the implications were clear. Humanity possessed military technology that had been developed in absolute secrecy, designed specifically to counter the threats they might encounter in space. General, these specifications suggest capabilities that exceed anything in our official military inventory. How is this possible? We've been working on this for decades, Madam President. Every major space program has contributed components. The International Space Station, the Mars colonies, the asteroid mining operations, all of them have been cover for weapons development. We've been preparing for the day when humanity would need to fight for its survival. The authorization process required biometric confirmation from the President, the Secretary of Defense, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Each leader provided their codes, fully aware that they were about to reveal humanity's most closely guarded secret to an alien enemy. Protocol 7 is now active, Hayes announced to the Situation Room. All Solar Defense Initiative assets are coming online. Across the solar system, hidden facilities began powering up systems that had remained dormant for years. Weapons platforms disguised as communication satellites activated their targeting systems. Arsenal ships hidden in asteroid fields began preparing their payloads. And on the far side of Europa, something massive began to move. The aliens had given humanity 72 hours to surrender, confident that their overwhelming technological advantage would force quick submission. They had studied human military capabilities from a distance, cataloged every weapon system, and calculated the precise force needed to ensure victory. But they had made one crucial error. They had assumed that what they could see represented everything humanity possessed. They had never encountered a species capable of such elaborate deception, of hiding their true capabilities until the moment of maximum impact. The countdown had begun, and humanity was about to reveal that they were not the primitives the aliens expected. The next 72 hours would determine whether Earth remained free or became another conquest in the Galactic Council's expansion. As Hayes watched the status reports flowing in from hidden installations across the solar system, he allowed himself a grim smile. The aliens had chosen the wrong species to intimidate. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology, but their ability to prepare for the unthinkable while maintaining perfect secrecy. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of human capabilities. The shadow of Jupiter's moon Europa had concealed humanity's greatest secret for 15 years. What appeared to be a routine mining operation had actually been the construction and maintenance facility for the most advanced warship ever built. The UEDS Retribution began its slow emergence from behind the frozen moon, its massive bulk gradually becoming visible to long-range sensors throughout the solar system. Admiral Williams felt the familiar vibration of the ship's engines as they powered up for the first time in 3 years. 8 kilometers of advanced human engineering stretched out before him, every surface designed not just for protection but for warfare. The Retribution was humanity's answer to the unknown threats that might lurk among the stars, a ship built in absolute secrecy by the brightest minds from every nation on Earth. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, their training conducted in complete isolation from the rest of humanity. Each officer had been selected for their expertise and their ability to maintain the most important secret in human history. For 15 years they had waited for this moment, knowing that their ship might be humanity's only hope against superior alien technology. "All systems online," reported Commander Blake from the tactical station. "Weapon systems showing full readiness, armor integrity at 100%. The Retribution's design philosophy differed radically from traditional human warships. Instead of trying to match alien energy weapons with similar technology, human engineers had taken a different approach. The ship carried no energy shields, no plasma cannons, no exotic defensive systems. Instead, it relied on the most basic principle of warfare: hit hard and don't get hit back. "Enemy fleet maintaining position at system edge," announced the sensor operator. 200 vessels in standard formation. "They appear to be waiting for our response to their surrender demand." Williams studied the tactical display showing the alien fleet's disposition. Their formation was perfect for intimidation but poor for actual combat. The ships were spread too far apart for mutual support, apparently confident that no human vessel could pose a threat to their superior technology. "Begin approach to engagement range," Williams ordered. "Maintain stealth systems until we reach optimal firing position." The Retribution's hull was covered in materials that absorbed and scattered electromagnetic radiation, making it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. The ship appeared as little more than a large asteroid until it activated its weapon systems, by which time it would be too late for any enemy to respond effectively. The alien fleet detected the massive energy signature as soon as the Retribution cleared Europa's shadow. Emergency signals flashed across their communication networks as sensors tried to process what they were seeing. The human vessel registered energy outputs that exceeded anything in their databases, and its size was simply incomprehensible. "Alien fleet is moving to intercept," reported the communications officer. "They're transmitting demands for us to halt and surrender." Williams ignored the alien demands, focusing instead on the tactical situation developing around his ship. The enemy vessels were turning to face the Retribution, their weapons powering up for what they clearly expected to be a brief engagement. They had never faced a ship designed specifically to counter their technological advantages. "Range to target, 15 million kilometers in closing," announced the weapons officer. "All railgun systems ready for engagement." The Retribution's primary armament consisted of 48 magnetic acceleration cannons capable of firing projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. The weapons used simple physics rather than exotic technology, accelerating tungsten penetrators to velocities that would turn any target into superheated gas. No energy shield in existence could stop a projectile moving at 30% of light speed. Secondary systems online, Blake reported. Missile pods loaded with kinetic interceptors. Point defense systems active. The ship's missile systems had been designed to overwhelm enemy defenses through sheer numbers rather than individual warhead power. Each missile carried multiple kinetic penetrators that would separate during the terminal phase, creating thousands of projectiles that no point defense system could intercept completely. Alien lead elements entering engagement range, the sensor operator announced. They're beginning to spread their formation. Williams watched the enemy ships maneuver into what they clearly believed was an advantageous position. The aliens had superior numbers and energy weapons that could probably penetrate conventional human armor. What they didn't understand was that the Retribution hadn't been built with conventional materials or conventional tactics in mind. All weapons prepare for sequential firing, Williams ordered. We engage with full force from the opening salvo. The Retribution's armor had been designed after careful analysis of every known alien weapon system. Instead of trying to block energy weapons with conventional materials, human engineers had created layered defensive systems that would absorb, redirect, and dissipate directed energy attacks. The ship could withstand sustained bombardment from weapons that would vaporize any other human vessel. Alien fleet is powering weapons, Blake reported. Energy signatures consistent with plasma-based systems. Range optimal, announced the weapons officer. All systems ready for engagement. Williams took a deep breath, knowing that the next few minutes would determine humanity's fate. The aliens had come to Earth expecting to find primitives with chemical rockets and metal projectiles. Instead, they had discovered a species that had spent decades preparing for this exact scenario. All weapons fire at will, Williams commanded. The Retribution's railguns opened fire simultaneously, launching a barrage of projectiles at velocities that turned space combat into a game of physics rather than technology. The tungsten penetrators crossed millions of kilometers in seconds, their incredible kinetic energy making them unstoppable by any known defensive system. At the same moment, thousands of missiles erupted from the ship's launch bays, each one programmed to overwhelm a specific target with multiple kinetic warheads. The Retribution had been designed to fight outnumbered against technologically superior enemies, and every system reflected that philosophy. The aliens had expected to face primitive human technology. Instead, they found themselves under attack by weapon systems that bypassed their technological advantages entirely. The Retribution didn't try to match alien energy weapons with similar technology. Instead, it used the oldest principle of warfare, accelerate heavy objects to high speeds and point them at the enemy. The first alien ship to die simply ceased to exist, as a tungsten rod moving at 30% of light speed passed through its hull. The kinetic energy was so enormous that the target's matter was converted to plasma by the impact, creating a brief star where a warship had been moments before. The battle for Earth's survival had begun, and the aliens were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology, but their ability to think differently about warfare itself. The first salvo from the Retribution transformed the orderly alien formation into chaos within seconds. Tungsten projectiles moving at incredible velocities punched through energy shields like they were made of paper, while thousands of missiles overwhelmed point defense systems that had never faced such concentrated firepower. The Corvan battleship Dominator simply vanished in a flash of converted matter as a railgun round passed through its hull. Thane watched in horror from his command ship as the human Dreadnought continued its relentless advance, weapons firing in perfect coordination. The massive vessel showed no signs of slowing as plasma bolts struck its hull, the energy weapons that had conquered hundreds of worlds, seemingly having no effect on the strange layered armor that covered the human ship. From bow to stern, all ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel, Thane ordered desperately. Maximum power to all weapon systems. The surviving members of the Council fleet turned their guns on the Retribution, unleashing a barrage of plasma bolts that would have reduced any known warship to molten slag. The energy weapons struck the human ship's hull with devastating force, but instead of penetrating, the plasma seemed to splash across the surface like water hitting a stone. Admiral Voss analyzed the sensor data streaming from the engagement, her tactical systems struggling to understand what they were seeing. The human ship's armor appeared to be absorbing the energy weapons and somehow redirecting their power harmlessly away from critical systems. The technology was unlike anything in Council records, suggesting that humans had developed completely different approaches to space warfare. Their armor is designed specifically to counter our weapons, Voss reported over the battle network. The humans have been studying our technology and building countermeasures. Williams felt the Retribution shudder as dozens of plasma bolts struck the hull simultaneously. The ship's armor held, just as the engineers had promised, but he could see the stress readings climbing on his tactical display. The vessel could withstand enormous punishment, but it was not invincible. Continue firing, Williams ordered. Target their largest ships first. The Retribution's railguns spoke again, sending another barrage of projectiles toward the alien fleet. Each tungsten rod carried enough kinetic energy to devastate a city, and at their current velocity they were essentially unstoppable. The aliens had never faced weapons that combined such enormous destructive power with such simple technology. A Rilani cruiser attempted to maneuver away from the incoming projectiles, but movement at sublight speeds was useless against weapons that crossed space at significant fractions of light speed. The railgun round struck the ship's center section, and the vessel split in half as its structural integrity failed catastrophically. Enemy formation is breaking apart, reported the sensor operator. Multiple ships showing critical damage. The missile barrage reached the alien fleet moments after the railgun strikes, each warhead separating into multiple kinetic penetrators during the final approach. The aliens' point defense systems managed to intercept perhaps 10% of the incoming projectiles, but the remaining thousands struck home with devastating effect. Thane's flagship shook violently as kinetic penetrators punched through its hull, each impact creating massive decompression events that tore through bulkheads and destroyed critical systems. The ship's plasma weapons fell silent as power conduits were severed, leaving the vessel defenseless against the human assault. Engineering reports massive hull breaches, his communications officer announced. Life support failing on decks 7 through 15. The battle was turning into a massacre. The Council fleet had been designed to fight enemies with similar technology, not to face weapons that completely bypassed their defensive systems. The humans had somehow developed projectile weapons that moved fast enough to make energy shields irrelevant, while their armor seemed specifically designed to neutralize plasma-based attacks. All ships begin withdrawal, Voss ordered as another Corvin battleship was reduced to expanding debris. We cannot maintain this engagement. The Retribution continued its advance, firing methodically at every alien vessel within range. The ship's weapon systems had been designed for exactly this scenario, with automated targeting that could engage dozens of enemies simultaneously. Williams watched his crew work with practiced efficiency, each officer trained to fight against overwhelming odds. Alien fleet is attempting to withdraw, Blake reported. Several ships are powering up their jump drives. Continue engagement until they leave the system, Williams ordered. Make sure they understand the consequences of returning. The railguns fired again, this time targeting the alien ships that were trying to escape. The projectiles crossed space faster than the aliens could react, striking vessels that thought they were already safe. The message was clear: humanity possessed weapons that could reach across the solar system with devastating effect. The surviving Council ships began jumping to hyperspace, their formations completely shattered by the brief but decisive engagement. In less than 20 minutes, the mighty fleet that had conquered hundreds of worlds had been reduced to a handful of damaged vessels fleeing for their lives. Thane's flagship was among the last to escape, its jump drive barely functional after the pounding it had received. As his ship prepared to enter hyperspace, he transmitted a final message to the human vessel that had destroyed his fleet. "This is not over," he warned. "The Council will return with more ships." Williams replied calmly, his voice carrying across space to the retreating alien commander. "You are welcome to try. We will be waiting." The last of the alien ships vanished into hyperspace, leaving the Retribution alone in the outer solar system. The battle was over, but Williams knew this was only the beginning. The aliens would return with larger fleets and better preparations, but humanity would be ready for them. The engagement had lasted exactly 18 minutes from first shot to final escape. In that brief time, the Retribution had destroyed or crippled nearly half of the Council fleet, demonstrating that human technology could match and exceed anything the aliens possessed. The survivors would carry news of this defeat back to their homeworlds, spreading word that humanity was not the easy target they had expected. "All stations, begin damage assessment," Williams ordered. "Prepare for possible follow-up attacks." The Retribution had proven that humanity could defend itself against alien aggression, but the real test would come when the Council returned with everything they had. The war for Earth's independence had only just begun. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the Great Chamber on Corvin Prime, where representatives from 12 species gathered to hear the impossible news. The holographic display showed the aftermath of the Sol System engagement. 43 ships destroyed, dozens more crippled, and the survivors bearing tales of human technology that defied all understanding. Thane delivered his report with the weight of defeat heavy in his voice. The species they had dismissed as primitives possessed weapons that could strike across vast distances with devastating accuracy. Worse, their defensive technology had been specifically designed to counter Council energy weapons, suggesting long-term preparation for this exact scenario. "A human vessel absorbed direct hits from our entire fleet," Thane explained to the assembled delegates. Their armor appeared to redirect plasma energy harmlessly away from critical systems. "We have never encountered defensive technology of this sophistication." Admiral Voss provided the technical analysis, her data streams painting a picture of human capabilities that terrified the Council leadership. The enemy had somehow developed kinetic weapons that moved at significant fractions of light speed, making them effectively unstoppable by any known defensive system. "Their primary weapons accelerate projectiles to velocities that convert matter to energy on impact," Voss reported. "The kinetic force is so enormous that energy shields provide no protection. They have essentially weaponized basic physics." The Council chamber erupted in concerned discussion, as representatives struggled to understand how such a primitive species had developed technology that surpassed their own. The humans had been observed for decades, their capabilities cataloged and analyzed, yet they had somehow hidden their true military strength until the moment of engagement. High Chancellor, mechs of the Zephyrian Assembly raised the question that everyone was thinking. How did we fail to detect these capabilities during our intelligence gathering? "They appear to have mastered the art of technological concealment," Voss replied. "What we observed as mining operations, research facilities, and commercial installations were actually components of an integrated defense network. They have been preparing for galactic contact for decades." The implications were staggering. The humans had not only developed superior weapons technology, but had also demonstrated strategic thinking that exceeded Council expectations. They had allowed the invasion fleet to enter their system, then struck with overwhelming force at the moment of maximum advantage. "Intelligence reports suggest the vessel we encountered was not their only military asset," Thane continued. "Long-range scans detected multiple hidden installations throughout their system. We may have faced only a fraction of their actual capabilities." The Council delegates exchanged worried glances as the full scope of the human threat became clear. This was not simply a matter of superior technology, but of a species that had systematically prepared for interstellar warfare while maintaining the appearance of primitive development. "What do we know about their overall military doctrine?" asked General Korth of the Mandarian Defense Force. They appear to favor overwhelming initial strikes followed by pursuit of retreating forces, Voss answered. Their weapons are designed to engage multiple targets simultaneously across vast distances. They have optimized their systems for fighting outnumbered against technologically superior enemies. The strategic implications were troubling. The humans had developed military technology specifically designed to counter Council advantages, then hidden those capabilities until the moment of maximum impact. This suggested a level of long-term strategic planning that made them extremely dangerous opponents. Recommendation: immediate classification of human space as a class of threat. Zone, Thane announced. All Council vessels should avoid their territory until we can develop appropriate countermeasures. The vote was unanimous. Within hours, directives went out to every Council fleet commander throughout the galaxy. The Sol system was to be treated as hostile territory containing weapons that could destroy entire fleets. The species that had been marked for conquest was now classified as one of the most dangerous threats in known space. News of the defeat spread rapidly through galactic communication networks. The Council's first military failure in over a century became the subject of intense analysis and speculation. Some species began to question whether the Council was truly invincible, while others wondered if humanity represented a new model for resisting galactic conquest. The Retribution maintained its position at the edge of the Sol system, a silent guardian broadcasting a simple message to anyone who approached. Earth was under human protection, and any hostile action would be met with overwhelming force. The message was received and understood throughout the galaxy. Williams reviewed the intelligence reports flowing in from across human space. Hidden installations were revealing themselves, showing the true scope of the Solar Defense Initiative. Weapons platforms disguised as communication satellites, arsenal ships hidden in asteroid fields, and manufacturing facilities that could produce the specialized ammunition needed for their unique weapon systems. The aliens will return, Blake observed as they watched the tactical displays. They have too much pride to accept defeat. Let them come, Williams replied. We have had 50 years to prepare for this moment. They will find that humanity does not surrender easily. The battle had lasted less than 20 minutes, but its consequences would reshape galactic politics for generations. The Council's expansion had been halted by a species they had dismissed as primitives, demonstrating that technological superiority alone was not enough to guarantee victory throughout human space. Secret facilities began revealing their true purposes. The International Space Station deployed weapon systems that had been hidden for decades. Mars colonies activated defensive installations that had been disguised as mining equipment. The asteroid belt revealed itself to be a fortress network capable of devastating any invasion force. The age of human expansion was about to begin. The species that had been marked for conquest had instead become the galaxy's newest military power, armed with technology that could challenge the established order. The Council's retreat had sent a clear message. Humanity would not be intimidated, conquered, or controlled. The Retribution and its sister ships stood ready to defend Earth against any threat, but their true purpose was far more ambitious. They were not merely defensive weapons, but the vanguard of human expansion into the galaxy. The aliens had awakened a sleeping giant, and they would soon learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology, but their refusal to accept defeat. The galaxy would never be the same.